All right, folks, we're back here again. Today is Thursday, the 25th of July, and they just announced a few hours ago, at least, my time, the announcements for what's in competition, what's out of competition, what's playing this year at the Venice International Film Festival, and this is the 76th festival. Okay, so just to let you know, the dates are Wednesday, August 28th to Saturday, the 7th of September. So we've still got a little over a month to go. But they're actually, between TIFF and Venice here, usually we see maybe a little bit more crossover than we're seeing here. By my count, there was one I did not mention, a film I did not mention in my video on Tuesday there, The Truth, that is also going to be here at Venice. It's actually the opening film. We'll get to that here in a second. But other than that, you've got, by my count, including that one, I should say, 5 films. They're going to be at both Venice and TIFF, which, I mean, usually that number's a little higher. I mean, I don't have the count on it last year, but I think we had probably closer to 8 or 9, or maybe, well, okay, maybe not that high. Yeah. Venice is a little bit, obviously it's a smaller festival, not as big and as many screenings as TIFF gets, but usually that number's closer to like 7 or 8, maybe. I mean, again, I'd have to check the numbers from the past couple of years, but I think we've been relatively higher in previous years. And of those 5 films, really only a couple of them are kind of big on our radar right now as potential Oscar players. The other 3 are kind of, ones that have kind of come up here just in the last few weeks as kind of ones to look out for. So, so we'll just go through the list really quick of what's playing here that is at TIFF that we mentioned in the other video. We're not going to go into the whole thing again on those, but Marriage Story, the Noah Baumbach film with Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, is going to be here. Guest of Honor with David Thewlis, the new Adam McGoyan film. Let's see, we've got Joker, the Todd Phillips film, of course, with Joaquin Phoenix. I think everybody knows about that one. And again, that's the wild card this season in more ways than one. And we've got The Laundromat, the Steven Soderbergh Netflix film with Meryl Streep and Gary Oldman and a whole bunch of others there about the Panama Papers leak. So those are the 4 that we mentioned in the other one. The one I kind of skipped over there is the opening film at Venice this year, and that's The Truth. And this one, the more I'm looking at it, the more I'm like, I don't know, this could actually be maybe a bigger player than we're thinking right now. It's from director Hirokazu Koreeda, who just did Shoplifters last year, which won the Palme d'Or at Cannes and ended up with an Academy Award nomination for Best Foreign Language Film. Pretty much got nominated everywhere last year for that foreign language category. This one stars Catherine Deneuve, who we haven't heard from in a long time, Juliette Binoche, and Ethan Hawke. And it's about an aging film star played by Deneuve, who is reunited with her daughter and her extended family. But a memoir could really tear them all apart as a lot of kind of controversial truths come out. I haven't seen a trailer on this yet. If there is one out there, I haven't seen it. But it also does not have a release date or an American distributor yet. I would assume that you've got, what would have been like Weinstein companies, probably would have been very interested in this. But you've got Fox Searchlight could maybe pick this up. You've got Neon has been picking up a lot of stuff lately. I'm trying to think who else could go for the Sony Pictures Classics. This sounds like maybe something up their alley. So, there's a lot of potential buyers out there. Of course, one of the big ones, like from the streaming services, I should say, like Netflix or Amazon, maybe could go for this one as well. But Amazon has another film at the festival out of competition. Netflix also has one out of competition. We'll get to those in just a little bit here. Okay, by the way, I should mention all of these films I've listed are in competition. I wanted to make that clear. Then we've got, 2 more here that were not in the lineup at TIFF. At least if they were, then they skipped over my notice, but I don't think they were. The first one I was actually, in retrospect, kind of surprised is not going to be at TIFF, and that's Ad Astra, the big, astronaut movie coming out with Brad Pitt. He stars in the film. He's also a producer. Also, Tommy Lee Jones, Ruth Negga, Liv Tyler, Donald Sutherland, and John Ortiz are in this one. Comes from James Gray, who's done The Immigrant and Lost City of Z in the past. And it looks like this is from Plan B, the production company that Brad Pitt has. So that's Dini Gardner and Jeremy Kleiner on board as well. And they've, of course, been nominated before for films like Selma and The Big Short, won Best Picture with Moonlight a few years ago now. So yeah, they're no stranger to the contest here. They were nominated last year for Vice. And there are a couple trailers actually out for this one. It's obviously, as if you can see from the trailers, it's kind of an astronaut played by Brad Pitt who goes into deep space to try to find his father, played by Tommy Lee Jones. It does look like it has a couple action beats to it. And it's, I'm sure the first film we're all thinking of with this is Interstellar, which we all were kind of hyping up a few years ago as maybe a bigger Oscar player than it ended up being. It only got, what was it, like 3 or 4 nominations. They were all in the craft categories. Unfortunately, the trailers really haven't gotten me pumped for this film yet. Yeah, there's not a ton of trailers out this year so far that I've seen that have really like got me pumped to see the film. As far as the actual like would-be contenders here, I think Joker's trailer was really good. Man, nothing else is coming to mind right now. The Harriet trailer that came out the other day wasn't bad. Jojo Rabbit's was pretty good. But those are very, very recent stuff. I'm trying to think of stuff that, trailers that were released before this week, but I don't know. Nothing else is really coming to mind here besides Joker, and that's really about it. Anyway, so this is Ad Astra is coming out September 20th from 20th Century Fox, division of Walt Disney, of course. This was kind of being floated around, so to speak, last year. For some various competitions and stuff, but they didn't have it ready, and all the visual effects and stuff, I would assume, yeah. But yeah, getting back to the content of it, though, I think Interstellar, for me, is one, the more I go from it, like the further away we get from it, the less I like it, I think. When I saw it the first time, I was totally confused by the ending, as I think a lot of us were. But I was also kind of, very underwhelmed from the rest of it there. It's like the human emotion story didn't really catch me. The action scenes and kind of the science fiction exploration parts of it were okay. I mean, they weren't like jaw-dropping, except for maybe a couple. Like the robots were really cool, and the planet where they could crash into the clouds and they turned to ice or whatever, that was kind of neat. But other than that, I mean, and the cinematography and the technical aspects of it were all pretty good. But so this one kind of looks like more of the same there. It looks like it has that emotional beat to it as well, with Brad Pitt trying to reconnect with his father, Tommy Lee Jones, and all that. And I'm not sure how that one's going to turn out. Now, of course, the September 20th date, that's close, but not exactly where Gravity landed, which of course, was a big hit, and one of the biggest Oscar winners of recent memory there. And that was coming up on 6 years ago now. So I don't know if it is the next Gravity or if it's just going to be the next Interstellar, or even the next First Man, which also had kind of a release date close to this one. I think it was about mid-October when that one came out last year. But anyways, so I'm not exactly pumped to see this one, like not like pumped, but I'm sure I'll see it and it'll probably be all right. But anyways. The next one that's in competition is Waiting for the Barbarians. This stars Johnny Depp, Robert Pattinson, and Mark Rylance. It's based on a novel of the same name. I kind of just looked over the story of it there, but it's basically kind of a journey about imperialism, versus natural order and nature and all that. Nothing. It sounds like maybe like a more down to earth version of Avatar and all the other Dances with Wolves and all those other stories there. No American distributor or release date on this one yet. And no trailer that I've seen. And of course, with Johnny Depp kind of being in the news, in and out of the news over the past few months. Yeah, I don't know if this one will get much buzz to it, but we'll see. Okay, then there's a couple films out of competition that I wanted to talk about here quick. First one is Seberg. This one kind of came up all of a sudden. It stars, got a pretty big cast in it. Kristen Stewart, Jack O'Connell, Anthony Mackie, Margaret Qualley, Zazie Beetz, Stephen Root, and Vince Vaughn. And I don't know, the director on it didn't catch my notice or anything, but it's being shot by Rachel Morrison, who was nominated a couple years ago for Mudbound, and also shot Black Panther last year. And it's kind of about the FBI targeting actress Jean Seberg, an Iowa native, actually, played by Kristen Stewart, due to her acquaintance with the late Hakeem Jamal, who's played by Anthony Mackie, which in and of itself kind of sounds like an interesting story. I kind of looked into it a little bit, and it is out of competition, but that still means, we've seen films out of competition do pretty well at the Oscars before, or at least be circled around a lot. There's no release date on this one yet, but it is from Amazon, so we can assume something this year. They might push it to next year, maybe, if the reviews come out on it and it's not, doesn't turn out, but we'll see. Okay, the next one up is The Burnt Orange Heresy. This is actually the closing film, starring Elizabeth Debicki, Mick Jagger, and Donald Sutherland. It's kind of a, just from what I saw, it's based on another novel. It's a drama about art theft, and that was about all I saw on it. Again, no release date or American distributor on this one yet. Closing films, we don't really have a large trajectory of closing films that have done well at the Oscars. The only closing film that I've seen in the last 10 years that, had something to it was The Magnificent Seven, which, of course, just kind of a September popcorn movie a few years ago. And, of course, didn't really have a big impact on the Oscars there. So, yeah, I'm not sure if that means anything or not, but that's that one. And then we have the last one being The King. This is starring Timothée Chalamet, Joel Edgerton, Robert Pattinson, Ben Mendelsohn, Sean Harris, Lily Rose Depp, and Thomasin McKenzie. Comes from director David McCowd, who directed Animal Kingdom and The Rover. And it's another Plan B production with Brad Pitt, Didi Gardner, Jeremy Kleiner, and the rest of the gang producing this one. And it's basically more or less just a kind of adaptation of some of Shakespeare's works, including Henry IV and Henry V. Yeah, again, I'm kind of waiting on a trailer for this one. I remember they announced this a few years ago, or I think it would have been, 2 years ago. I think it was right about the time that Call Me By Your Name came out, and we all kind of learned who Timothée Chalamet was. So it's kind of interesting to see this one pop up here. Again, no release date on this one. It is from Netflix, so it's kind of a, every once in a while Netflix will kind of drop their big release dates and stuff for their original productions. So it could pop up in October, it could pop up, I wouldn't bet on it, but maybe September is still a possibility there, or November, December, or again, they could push it to next year, depending on how it turned out. Okay, yeah, so before we close here, just a couple of things. The opening night film is The Truth, and it's one, right now it's like, it's not really on our radar. It's kind of, it has just kind of cropped up here in the last few weeks. And kind of looking at some of the other previous opening night films, a lot more of them have been like more in-your-face picks. Like we've had First Man was the opening film last year, and of course we all thought that was going to be maybe like the most nominated film of the night come Oscar night, but yeah, we see how that turned out. Downsizing was another opening film from 2 years ago. Again, coming from a prominent nominated director before and all that, and yeah, the movie kind of turned out to be so-so for most people. I liked it more than most, but again, that got 0 nominations. La La Land, which of course was, the biggest Oscar movie in history until it wasn't. I always get a kick in the head thinking of that one. And that was kind of one, as soon as the trailer dropped, we're all like, yep, that one wins. Yep, and it almost did. Came as close as any other film has without winning. We can say that for sure. Let's see, a couple more opening films in the past include Everest, which was, again, kind of big spectacle film that didn't really pan out. Birdman, which was a Best Picture winner, of course. Gravity, which we mentioned. And The Ides of March, which is another kind of well-expected one that maybe kind of fizzled out a little bit. So, there were a couple other examples there. I kind of looked through them, and there were a couple titles that popped up as opening films that didn't get a lot of trajectory either. So it's not like, we've kind of, I guess, more or less been spoiled by some of these picks in the last few years for opening films as far as expecting them to do extremely well at the Oscars. And that's not to say The Truth won't, but it's just, we have to keep in mind, it's like there's no guarantee that because you're the opening night pick, that means that you're going to really, do well at the Oscars. It's no guarantee. Let's see. One more thing I was going to check was the Golden Lion Award is the top prize here, of course, at Venice, and we saw a very, very long line of films and instances. It was actually, I think, let me look up again who won last year here. But yeah, it's been there was a very long trajectory where if you won the Golden Lion here, you had no shot at the Oscars, or at least you were, you hadn't won. So like we saw films like until Shape of Water 2 years ago, it was like pretty much if you win this, it's like it's kind of a curse, more or less. Like we've seen films like The Wrestler won here, and that didn't win at the Oscars. Brokeback Mountain, which arguably came very close but didn't win. Vera Drake, which I remember got a few nominations. I don't think that was a Best Picture nominee though. Not that I remember. No, director, screenplay, actress. That's right. Yeah, so it only got a couple there. You can go to Michael Collins from the 90s won here, and then that really fizzled out. What did that get, like costume design or something? And then there was a tie between Shortcuts and Blue, which was part of the Three Colors trilogy back in the 90s. Shortcuts got a director nomination, but that was about it. Let's see here. What else? I thought there were a couple other. Oh yeah, in 1980 there was Atlantic City and Gloria. Atlantic City qualified the next year for the Oscars, but Gloria only got, I think, Best Actress, and that was about it. So, yeah, that's not to say that if you win here, that you're totally doomed for from getting any attention at the Oscars. But oh, wait a second, that's right. I looked through again. Hamlet won here in '48, so that was Best Picture, of course. Yeah. So so we've had 2 Best Picture winners. So yeah, that would be, and then Roma won here last year, which again we, including myself, kind of fell into that trap. So anyway, I've noticed that recently. The past couple of years at the Oscars, it's like everybody kind of switches tacks at the last second, and it's like, oh, I totally called it, and it's like, yeah, bullshit. Everybody was saying like 3 Billboards, like everybody switched over to 3 Billboards, and then very last second switched back to Shape of Water a couple of years ago, or last year it was like everybody had Roma, including myself. And then the last second, a lot of people changed over to Green Book, and then it won. So it's like, I don't know. Feel like maybe you just have to march to the beat of your own drum this year. But we're obviously way too far out to solidify who's way out front and all that stuff. Okay, so that's all I got to talk about here. It's surprisingly well. I mean, Venice, as I said, is much more selective. They're shorter schedule, less screenings, and all that. So if you get in, it's a big deal. But you're not going to get as much widespread attention as something like TIFF, or even you could argue Telluride too, even though that one again is an even shorter schedule. There's a lot more screenings there, and there's a lot more films there, and usually a lot of those films end up in the Oscar discussion. But of course, Telluride is not announced until like the night before or 2 nights before, and it's right around Labor Day. I'm usually on holiday away from home, so I don't know if I'm going to get to that when it comes out. Like last year, I had to just kind of follow up on it after it happened. So yeah, we'll see if that happens again this year. But really, until then, I think we're gonna take a break here. We'll come back probably in a week or 2, or maybe even later, and start discussing the films that have already been out this year that maybe have a chance at the Oscars. And then after that, we'll get into what's coming out September, what's coming out October, what's coming out in November, what's coming out December. Just do a month-by-month kind of play-by-play there, sort of, so to speak, of what films are right now on the radar for Oscar consideration. So that's all I got for now. We'll see you guys in August.